Marshal SBP Sinha, 1 year since the Balakot strikes, would you say the key takeaways are the same as soon after that we all talked about? That's one, India showed that the red lines that had earlier been drawn, it was drawing new red lines. And two, that the Pakistani nuclear bluff didn't really come into calculation.
True. India has made it very clear after the Balakot strike to Pakistan that do not mess with us and do not protect and fight for terrorists. And this has been amply made clear, and the entire world has supported this view. The nuclear bluff was always there. It was for us to disprove it, that it doesn't exist. And we have done it adequately.
When you look at once the political decision was made, then it was left, the operations were left to the Indian Air Force. What they were choosing in terms of aircraft platforms, the bombs, the spice bombs that were used, the low-level flying that they had to do, terrain mapping. And finally, in the end, the overall picture was that the Pakistani military was deceived while India was carrying this out.
It is always so. The decision to go across the border is that of the political decision. The execution will always be left to the armed forces to carry out the mission in the best possible manner that it can be done and with the capabilities that we have. Accordingly, Indian Air Force chose the right platform, the right weapon, and used tactical routing with terrain avoidance to be able to deceive the Pakistanis and enter undeterred into their territory to carry out the mission successfully. And that is what we did. It shows the skills of our pilots, the training status, and the entire capability of the Indian Air Force.
So a clear lesson being sent to the Pakistani military, the Pakistani deep state, the Pakistani state itself?
Absolutely. Because till now, there were enough statements from Pakistan that these are non-state actors. So if that be so, then India decided to take on these terrorists who are operating on Pakistani soil. India never intended to attack Pakistan. India attacked the terrorist camps which were operating against India. So it was an attack against the terrorist setup. And that was made amply clear that wherever you are, we will get you.
The statement that came out again was that it's non-military targets there,
True.
the terrorists that were being targeted.
Yes.
Now, when you look at crucial aspects of why these strikes were successful, on the ground itself, we have pictures of intelligence pictures from inside the camp that were sent before the strikes. And there was high-tech, whether it's from ISRO, whether it's from other friendly nations in terms of terrain mapping, etc.
See, there are few things that were required for the mission planning. One was the HUMINT, as you said, and the second was TechInt, which actually identified the number of mobiles that were located in that place. That gives us the strength of people who live there. And of course, we required the requisite satellite imagery of the right resolutions. So you have to give credit to all the agencies that helped us gather this intelligence and plan this mission successfully.
Post this successful mission, now the radar network, the military was on standby anyway, because after that, how would there be any retaliation? The whole radar network that would have been involved to prevent any kind of Pakistani intrusion, which subsequently did happen to a certain extent, that was also a crucial part of the whole mission post the strikes.
See, after the Indian Air Force carried out the strike, it goes without doubt that they had to be prepared for a retaliation, and so were they. And all the elements of Indian Air Force were on standby and alert. And we detected the Pakistani retaliatory strikes, so-called retaliatory strikes, well in time. And we thwarted their entire mission. In my estimation, they have dropped close to 11 bombs. None of them have hit. And they were all precision-guided weapons.
So they probably just dropped them and they were turning cold.
And they were close to 25 to 27 Pakistani aircraft. And we had total of 8 Indian Air Force aircraft, 2 Su-30s, 2 Mirages and 4 Bisons. And this is what we did to them. It shows the training status, the capabilities, motivation level and courage of our pilots and the entire setup which supports the air operations.
You were talking about the pilots there, and of course, the most famous pilot who came out of that scrap there was Wing Commander Abhinandan. The whole dogfight that happened, how do you look back at it a year later in terms of the information that's open sourced or available with us in terms of that also being a success?
See, there was no denying the fact that the Su-30s were engaged in beyond visual range combat. And there were, as per my knowledge, there were 5 AMRAAM missiles fired at long range, and the Su-30s were able to deceive all of them. And Abhinandan got an opportunity to close in, and he did not let this opportunity go. It shows his skill, his courage, and to take on a F-16 in a MiG-21 itself is the capabilities of the pilot, because there's a vast difference between the capabilities of the aircraft. So it shows his courage and his skill and the training status. And not only that, after he was captured, you see his demeanor and behavior in the captivity. It shows his courage and his capabilities.
And Marshal, again, the Pakistani narrative that was built up soon after that dogfight was claiming that the Indians, maybe even up to 3 pilots had been lost, but they were actually, by mistake, actually letting out that the F-16 had been shot down with 2 pilots.
See, Pakistan has always been lying about facts. It starts from 1948 onwards, from the Kashmir fight that took place. Even they don't concede a defeat in 71, in spite of their country being halved. So, what they say do not matter. But the facts are that there are enough evidences of 2 aircraft leading to ejections, because there are 2 to 3 parachutes simultaneously photographed in the air with videos. Then the famous ISPR director had claimed that they had 2 or 3 pilots in captivity, and one of them was transferred to a command hospital of theirs.
Imran Khan in Parliament saying the same thing,
Yes.
3 pilots.
So, there is no doubt that 2 aircraft had crashed. One was of Abhinandan, and obviously the other was Pakistani, because the Indian Air Force did not lose any other aircraft.
And we had also some other inputs that were proving that it was an F-16.
That Indian Air Force has released the ISACS picture where the blip disappears. The Pakistani F-16 blip disappears. So there is enough intelligence available to support this loss of Pakistani F-16.
Pakistan's domestic constituency being addressed by this narrative that was being built up first by the ISPR DG there. But Americans, they would know if an F-16 had gone down, and especially with America trying to sell us the variants of aircraft. That would also possibly play into the narrative that America would not want this fact to be known publicly.
See, America primarily would not have any role in this aspect. The issue is that every contract that you sign, you have an end user agreement. As per that end user agreement, Pakistan should not have used the F-16s against India in offensive missions. They did it, and they had no option but to deny it, because there is no way they can accept it. But what is saddening is that because of this attitude and this intent to tell a lie, Pakistan has lost the opportunity to accept the courage and the sacrifice made by the dead pilot.
Their own pilots.
Yeah.
We've seen President Trump on his visit to India saying that they're working constructively with the Pakistanis to curb terror from their soil. But that apart, when there was a lot of clamor domestically in India for the Air Force or the government to give proof of the strike in Balakot, now that's not the Air Force's job, is it? And especially with you were talking about HUMINT and you talked about TechInt as well that was being used. Disclosing that would tell the adversary how and what information you were getting, which is clearly not required.
See, a lot of it was politically driven. But what needs to be understood is that the last war that was shown on TV in India was the Kargil war. And you had these Bofo guns firing, and you had a lot of explosions and things taking place like that. So people have an image that there is a lot of high caliber weapons that are fired. You will have fallen buildings because they expect that when a bomb hits a building, the building will fall. But tell me, you have so many earthquakes which leads to numerous building falls. But does it lead to 100% casualties? It does not. So if you use a bomb to drop a building, it will drop the building, but it may not cause the casualties of the people, 100% casualties of people inside. So therefore, there are special penetration bombs designed to penetrate such buildings and then cause an explosion, and they have less amount of explosives.
And an incendiary power as
So
well.
once they explode inside, it sucks away the entire oxygen, and there is also an explosive element to it, which causes the death of everybody who is inside. And these bombs are specially designed for these purposes, and that is what was used. So people did not see a building falling, and it was difficult for them to imagine, because everybody is not familiar with the technology that are used in the weapons today. Today you have specific weapons for specific missions. You don't use common weapons for everything. So that is why it was difficult. People expected photographs of some fallen building, but Indian Air Force had released images of the holes on the buildings which were used for the penetration bomb to penetrate. And most important, that the Pakistan had claimed that these bombs had missed the target. If that was so, why did they not allow any person to enter the training complex for next 45 days? And even after 45 days, when they took people away,
It was choreographed, it was possibly another
they only
area.
took it to the places which were not earlier attacked. And you see the importance of these weapons. That seminary had a mosque. And Indian Air Force was very clear that this mosque should not be touched, because that the aim was to eliminate terrorists and not to hurt Pakistan or their religious places.
When you look at future wars, Marshal, now when we're talking about theatre commands and tri-service commands coming up over the next few years, an operation like this, do you visualize us having done enough to prepare for those commands and how tri-service?
See, the Army, Navy and Air Force, they are always prepared to take on any tasks that could be assigned to them in the defense of the country. The reorganizations of command or creations of theatre command is primarily to improve the command and control structure. It will not...
And coordination.
And better management of resources, budget and other aspects. So that will not have an impact on the training status and the capabilities, because the capabilities exist as of today.
Marshal Sinha, thank you so much for your perspective on 1 year after the Balakot strikes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks.